everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. Today we're doing another sit and sew. We're going to be sitting at my industrial sewing machine. It is a Juki 1541S. I purchased this from Juki Junkies down in Tampa. They delivered it to me. I think they're in Tampa. I'm pretty sure they're in Tampa. I will have a link for my sewing machine down in the description of this video. Gigi is amazing. So if you're interested in industrial machines, make sure you give her a call. She's going to walk you through everything and make sure you get the right machine for you. This was the right machine for me, I think. I don't know. We're still getting used to it. We're still playing with it. In today's video, we are going to be making the Bonnie bucket bag from Swoon. This is a favorite on the sewing community. This is a favorite personally as well. This bag actually is going to be made for my mom, and we're going to be using leather again. That's right. We're using leather for the exterior and waterproof canvas for the lining. I already have everything cut out. If you want to see a full walkthrough tutorial of exactly how to make this bag from beginning to end, as well as alterations to make it a backpack, to make it a drawstring, I will have links for those tutorials down in the description of this video. This is not a tutorial. This is pretty much just sit and hang out and chat with me while I'm working on this bag. Also, warning, 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 warning. If you do not like seeing somebody confused, make mistakes, struggle, do us both a favor, don't watch this video. This video is me figuring it out, which means I'm going to make mistakes, which means sometimes I'm going to go too fast, sometimes I'm going to go too slow, sometimes I'm probably not going to thread something correctly. There's going to be hiccups along the way. We will work it out together, but if that's something that just really grates you, you can't watch something like that, then this is not the video for you. I have plenty of other tutorials that are very professional, walk you through everything for the most part on my channel, so you can go check out those. Okay, so I wanted to show you some of the hardware I'm using today. I think this is from Wizardry Stitchery, but check out these. Instead of D-rings or rectangle rings, I'm going to use these. So we'll see how that goes. And I'll be using little swivels. I don't know why I have three. Why do I have three of these? I don't know. I've got my bag tag. I've got a couple of zipper pulls. I don't remember if I needed. Yes, there are two zippers. My goodness, this is my vinyl today. So I've got this vinyl. I'll show you. This is a scrap of it. But let's see. For the exterior, I've got this gold vinyl. Now, honestly, I don't know where I bought this from. I bought this vinyl years and years and years ago, and I never quite figured out how to use it on my other sewing machine, so I just kind of held on to it. But this is going to be hopefully good today. So I've got that vinyl, and then I'm going to use that as well as this vinyl. So like the exterior is going to be like this. This is like a two-toned bag. So it's going to look like that. So hopefully it looks cute. Okay, let's talk needles real quick. A lot of you guys were telling me I was using needles that were too big. Here are all the needles I have. So you tell me which ones I'm supposed to be using. I've got size 21. I don't know if you can see. So I've got size 21 needles. I've got, looks like size, are those 21 needles? Yeah, size 21. And then I've got size 23 needles, which I think a lot of you said were too big. And then I've also got, I believe these are size 19 needles. So, I honestly have no idea what needle is in my machine. I should probably change it out, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that. And I know, here's the thing with these industrial machines. This is the same thing with my industrial embroidery machine. These needles are round. So I wonder if I can take one out to show you. Let's see, it's completely round. It has no flat edge. So typically on a standard sewing machine, a domestic sewing machine, there'll be like a flat edge on your needle, and that way you get it in perfectly. It's perfectly straight. You don't have to worry about it. These needles are completely round on the tops, but it does have to be in a very specific way. It has to be inserted into your machine a very specific direction. There's like a little notch back here on the needle. I don't know if you can see that. But there's like a little notch on one side of the needle, and that has to be facing a very specific direction. If it's not facing that direction, it's not going to work right. So it takes some like finagling. Once you get used to it, it's not a big deal. You'll get the hang of it. But if that's not something you're used to, that's like, for me, that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, is threading the machine, changing the needle, things like that. So I'm going to be using this Tex 80 variegated thread in the bobbin and the top needle. What's the nice thing about industrial is you can use like really thick stuff everywhere. We're going to be using that. We might try to use this over the front exterior zipper. I did use edge coat. Actually, it's not edge coat. It's like Giardini. I forgot how to say it. But I use that on the edges of this. So we're going to give that a try. I don't know. We're just going to kind of wing it. Who knows how this is going to go. It's a mystery to all of us. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, shout outs, tips, advice, leave them down in the comment section. I love your advice. You guys, so many of you were telling me that I threaded it wrong last time, so I went through and I rethreaded it, and I think it's correct now. So many of you have said I'm using too thick of a needle. I hear you. I think the needle that's on there is too thick. Maybe we'll change it. We'll change it. We'll change the needle, okay? We need to do it. And so many of you guys were telling me what the different parts were. So if I have questions as I'm going through this, I'm definitely going to ask them in the video. Feel free to give me all the advice, all the answers down in the comment section down below. I appreciate that greatly. And I think anybody else who might be brand new to a machine like this would also appreciate that. If you are interested in a more accurate, knowledgeable, detailed tutorial using industrial machines, I have two YouTubers that I love to watch personally. There's Lauren Mormino and there's Saya Swag. So I'll have both of those channels linked, and I'll probably link them up here as well. They are professionals. They know what they're doing in and out with these machines. These machines are their babies. This is like what they work with 99% of the time. Go watch their channel. They will guide you through all things industrial sewing. I mean, amazingly. They're fantastic. I love them. Okay, so let's change out this needle, I guess. Let's do that first, right? Let's change out a needle first. All right, so it looks like the screw over here on the side for the needle is a flathead screwdriver. So let's just unscrew it enough to get the needle out. All right, so here's our needle. So I'm gonna probably say this is a size 23 needle. I'm gonna go with a size 21 needle, because I really don't want anything to break. And I didn't even pay attention to see which way it was pointing. I meant to like make a note on which side the groove was when I took the needle out, and I didn't do that. I just took it out. And I dropped my needle! So the needle, the shiny one, is the one I just took out. This more dark one, that's the one I just put in. I'm honestly not really sure. Maybe that's a non-stick needle. It looks like a non-stick needle, but I didn't know. So we're gonna give it a try, okay? Okay, I just looked it up on YouTube. So that little groove right here, the little groove on the side, it needs to be facing towards the inside of the machine. All right, good. So now we just have to make sure we do it correctly. So I actually do have a really fantastic tool to help keep that needle really straight when you're installing it, but it's over on my other studio with my embroidery machine. It's like a magnetic tool that really like holds the needle in place so that it doesn't twist on you, because you'll notice when I'm turning it, it kind of twists around a little bit. All right, I think that's pretty straight. It looks pretty straight. Now, which way does the thread go? I forgot. Okay, so thank goodness for sewinggold.com, their YouTube channel. I go to that a lot. So now we have that needle installed. So I have this, you can see this is my little tester piece of leather. It's just a piece of leather here. It's double folded. And this is what I use to kind of make sure everything is good. So let's put this down. Let's try it out. I always get so nervous about this. It's gonna be hard to figure out if I did this right because there's so many stitches on here. Okay, so it worked, but I feel like the pressure might be too much. So you can see we have these little marks on the bottom here from the feed dogs, which is okay. But when you do a top stitching, it's not necessarily, I don't know if this is a good bottom thread. So I feel like the pressure might be a little bit too much. So I'm gonna figure out how to adjust that. All right, well, I think that just like with my other sewing machines, tension is going to be just one of those things I have to kind of learn with time. So I'm gonna rotate you guys a little bit. So we're just gonna go for it. We're just gonna get started. All right, so I am going to change my stitch length to like a 4 for construction, I think. We'll go with that. We'll go with a 4 for construction. We're going to start by building the outer panels. So I have my 2 outer panels. We just have to take them and flip them right sides together. And when you do that, they should be the exact same size. So you guys, you know what? It is 36 minutes in and I haven't even made a single stitch yet. This is why it takes me so long to sew. And I'm not back stitching at the beginning and the end of my stitches. And I've had a few of you guys ask, yes, I do have the servo motor. I do have that. So I do have speed control on this, and I turn it down to go as slow as possible. A few of you suggested that I get a special add-on to ensure the needle stays down while I'm sewing. I've seen kind of mixed reviews on it, so I'm gonna try to just wing it for now, but I might eventually get that and try that out too. All right, so we've got these sewn together, right sides together. Here is the top where I was sewing, here is the bottom. So I think the tension looks okay. It looks okay. So now we're gonna take these and press them open. So see, this is what the front and back of the bag will look like. So we're gonna press those open, and we're just gonna take the seams on the back and press the seam allowance open so that we can top stitch along both edges. So the tricky thing here is one leather, this leather is much thicker than the other. So I don't know if you guys can see. You see the difference? This is a much thicker leather than the brown one, the gold one is. So let's see how that goes. So there's the top stitching on the thicker side. I think that looks pretty good. I think that looks good. So now we're going to top stitch on the thinner side. All right, so let's take a look at both of these. So here's the top stitching on both of them. It looks pretty good. I mean, it's not the straightest top stitching in the world, but when is my top stitching ever the straightest? Never. It's fine. It's for my mom. She's gonna love it. All right, so first step done. Nothing crazy happened. No needles broke or anything, so that's a success. Do we quit now? No, we must continue. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick which one of these panels is going to be the front. This one is a little crinkly on my brown leather, so I'm going to make this one the front of my bag. And I'm going to draw my little rectangle. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but I have my little rectangle marked. It's hard to see on the shiny, but I have my rectangle marked for that front pocket. So far, so good. So now I have my pocket facing, and I'm just going to lay it right side down on top of that rectangle, and I'm going to tape it in place. Also, I was supposed to mark this line on the wrong side. We're gonna get through this, guys. We're gonna get through it. Okay, now I have it marked on the exterior and the front, so that's great. I'm just gonna take my pocket facing and just center it over that. With pocket facings, they don't have to be perfect. They're not really gonna be seen in the end. It's what you're gonna use to help you attach your zipper, which I don't think I even need to do. I don't know. You guys are quickly going to see why I am not a bag designer. And I am a pattern follower, because when I try to tweak patterns, it doesn't always work out. And I didn't practice this, so you guys are here with me. All right, so now we're just going to sew along that rectangle, sewing that pocket facing in place. Bye-bye. Okay, so here's the top stitching that I just did, and then here is the bottom, and that's on the waterproof canvas. Okay, so now we're just gonna cut along the center of that slit and then do our little triangles. You know what to do. I think I'm going to skip this because I am really, I mean, it's going to look cute, but I think I'm going to skip it. I don't think I'm quite there for that yet. I think that the challenge of using leather is probably enough of a new thing for me to try today. So I don't think I'm going to use this, which stinks because look how pretty it is. But I will find something for this. All right, so you see how I taped it. I think it'll be okay, but this is what the front looks like, which looks pretty good. This is thick here. Now, normally I would be very, very worried about the thickness of that, but I mean, we've put the machine through the test a few times and it did great, so I'm still gonna add a couple clips to just kind of try to smoosh it down a little bit. It's probably gonna break my clips. I think we'll be okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna grab my zipper and I'm just gonna top stitch my zipper down and then I will sew on the pockets like the instructions say. So the welts are there to help you top stitch this down. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna grab some tape though. And now I'm just going to top stitch around all 4 edges of this to hold that zipper in place, and then we will add on the pocket. You know what, guys, since we've got those big bulky seams, it's time to enlist the help of our glasses. Oh, these are prescriptions, so it actually does help. Just make sure we move the zipper pull out of the way. And I can slow down my stitching. I mean, it just takes practice. Switch this whole thing around. Come on here. Oh, broke my thread. Dang it. So as I turned, my thread broke. Now, I really do think I might have some sort of a tension issue, but the stitching looks okay. I just find when I kind of like turn things and finagle things, my thread breaks fairly easy, which makes me think there's a tension issue or a threading issue, which if I have it happen again, I'm probably going to rethread the machine. All right, so I'm just putting my needle down in right where I pulled out a couple stitches so that way I can tie them off in a little bit. We'll see if that works. That doesn't sound right. So I've got some sort of a jam in my bobbin right now, so let me take a look at that. The bobbin's not supposed to look like that. That's my bobbin right now. So something went awry. Let's try it again. I'm not giving up. I know the universe is telling me to stop, but I am stubborn and I won't do that. So let's try this again. All right, I made it past that part, so that's good. See if we can make it down this way now. I'm gonna close that. Go one forward. That. Just kind of hoping for the best each time. Started maybe that. So let's look at what we have to work with. So as you saw, my thread was breaking quite a bit. I'm not really sure why, probably tension, probably user, probably something I did. But we have over here, we have a couple of threads I need to address, and then we have the threads at the start and the stop as well. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to grab my seam ripper stiletto, and I'm working on the stiletto here. And I'm gonna flip it over to the back, and I'm going to just gently pull on my bobbin thread. And when I pull on this a little bit, it's gonna kind of pull the top thread just a little bit so that I can see it, and then use my stiletto to get in there and pull that top thread to the back. So now on the back here, I'm just going to tie as many of these threads together as I can. I'm just gonna knot them. Now, this really won't be seen in the end. It's not completely covered up. These stitches aren't gonna be hidden behind fabric necessarily, but it's the inside behind the zipper of a pocket, so it's not it's not really that noticeable. So I'm just going to tie them off into double or triple knots, and then I'm going to clip them. Okay, so here is our pocket. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, for my first time doing a pocket like this with leather, I think it looks pretty good. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna remove all the tape back here. I can trim down my zipper tape too. Okay, so now I can go back to the pattern, and pretty much what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this welt here, I'm gonna take my pocket, I'm going to sew the top pieces right sides together, just like that, and then I will lift this up and sew the bottom pieces right sides together. So I have like a little bucket here. Okay, so I have the top sewn. I'm just gonna flip up the bottom, and I'm going to loop it down and sew the bottom seams of the pocket and the facing right sides together. Once again, if you'd like more details, please refer to my tutorial where I go into this in depth. All right, so once the top and the bottom are on there, you just kind of give it a press. Press it maybe with an iron, not this, and then just flatten it out and sew along these sides at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I mean, that looks cute, right? I think that looks cute. I think my mom will like that. I didn't line up, that's just gonna drive me crazy. Look, I didn't line up the beginning and the end stitches together. That will drive me nuts. But my mom won't mind it, so it's okay. She'll like it still. Okay, so now we're gonna work on these bottom panels. Now the thing about the bottom panels is that you're gonna fold down the top shorter edge. They look like rectangles, they're not. They're just slightly angled on the side. But you're gonna fold down that top edge, and then that way you don't have a raw edge there. Now, since I'm using leather, I honestly could just leave it a raw edge, but just for fun, let's fold it down. So I'm gonna use my double-sided tape again for this. And we wanna fold it down a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to draw a 1-inch line going down from the top edge of the bottom panels, and then I'll fold this down wrong sides together to get that nice 1/2 inch. What you could do if you just wanted to use the bottom panels, you could just leave them like this, or you could trim down that top edge by 1/2 inch and then just leave the raw edges like that. Totally up to you. So I have my tape added onto that top edge. This tape works so good. It's such good tape. So I'm just gonna fold down that top edge to meet my marked line, and now I have a 1/2 inch on the top folded down. There we go. Nice and clean. So this tape is fantastic. It's like the iron for leather, right? Whenever you're ironing quilt cotton or cotton woven, it will just stay, you know? This tape is like that. You use it, it's not going anywhere. Now all we have to do is tape this onto the bottom of our front panel and our back panel, and then just top stitch it down. So I'm probably just gonna actually add clips to the bottom and the sides, and I think that will be enough. I don't think I need to tape it down. I think we'll be okay with that. And if your bottom panel is a little bit longer than your front panel, that's okay too. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch along the top folded edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then I'm just going to baste around the whole thing. The stitch length is set to like a 5. And when we're doing this, we want to make sure we stitch down the bottom of this pocket. So make sure that bottom pocket doesn't move up. We want it stitched down while we're top stitching this edge right here. some issues with my thread again, as my thread is kind of shredding. Makes me wonder if I'm not using the right needle for this. So you can see my thread. You see my thread, how it starts shredding? Like here up here is the healthy thread. That's where it all starts shredding and bunching up. And then here is the kind of sick thread that was going into the needle. I'm not sure how that happens. If you have any tips on how that might happen, especially with an industrial, please let me know. I have a lot to learn. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I got my Bernina, we did not get along. I still have, my Bernina has an attitude, okay? It does. But I was very angry with my Bernina for a while. And until I realized what I was doing wrong, right? I had to get to know the machine. I had to know exactly how much oil I needed. There's a lot that goes into these machines. And right now I might not be threading it completely correctly, which if I'm not, let me know. And every machine is like that. Honestly, a lot of machines right off the bat are going to be a little tricky. The one machine I have that right out of the box, got it loaded up, loved it, have never really ever said a bad word to it at all, is my Juki TL 2010 Cube. That's a good machine. Okay, it looks good. We've got one bottom panel done. Now I'm just going to repeat that with the back panel and the other bottom panel. I know a lot of people are interested in these industrial machines because as bag makers, it feels like sky's the limit, right? There's nothing we can't make. If we have a machine like this, we can make designer bags. Now it's just about, we can buy the same leather. We can buy a lot of similar hardware. We can buy the same thread. We can buy a powerful enough machine that can actually sew all that material. What's stopping us from making these incredibly expensive bags that we see, you know, on the runway? Well, that's where your skill set's gonna come in and practice. All right, now we're gonna finish up this exterior. We're gonna take our two panels, our front and our back panels, and we're just gonna lay them right sides together and sew along these side edges right here. Those sides. The thing I like about this pattern that I wanted to test out on the machine today is it has a rounded bottom. It's not the tightest rounded bottom, but it's also not the easiest curvy bottom to sew. So we're going to see how that goes. So let's get these straight edges of the sides sewn up first. And then we'll work on that round bottom. I am going to backstitch at the beginning and the end of these stitches. I'm going to switch my stitch length again to a little bit of a lower one. And we're going to do this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, now I'm going to attach the exterior bottom, and I have a piece of Decovil Heavy here that I have to fuse onto that exterior bottom. You can definitely just grab some glue and glue this in place if you'd like. I don't mind fusing it. When I fuse this, I'm going to fuse it so that the vinyl part, or not the vinyl, or vinyl if you're using it, but leather front end, the right side of the leather, is down on my pressing mat. And the glue part of my Decovil Heavy is going to be down against the back of my leather. And I'm going to cover it with a piece of quilt cotton or cotton woven, just a piece of fabric that it can take a lot of heat. And I'm going to cover that up, and I'm going to use a lot of steam, and I'm just going to steam this in place. And I have found that that doesn't damage my vinyl, at least. I haven't tried it with leather, but I found it doesn't damage my vinyl when I do that. I don't want to fuse it from the front, but if I fuse it from the back with a protective piece of fabric, it is fine. So I'm going to fuse that real quick. Okay, so that is fused in place and the leather looks fine. Now what I want to do is find the midpoints on the short edges and the long edges of my bottom here. All right, now we're just going to attach the bottom and the sides, right sides together. Again, there's a whole tutorial going over this. We're just interested in the sewing part today. So I'm just going to use just regular clover clips to clip it all together. And I'm using the seams for the exterior as my midpoint marks for the sides and the front and back. Okay, so the camera wasn't on when I was trying to show you, but as you can see on the other camera over here, I have the bottom clipped in place to the exterior, and now I'm just slowly going around these curves, and I am just sewing right against that Decoville heavy interfacing. And I'm going as slow as I can, because you know curves. Curves, we go slow. So I'm just gonna rotate this as I can. So we got a little jammed again, and I feel like maybe my bobbin didn't wind the best. Let's look at this bobbin here, huh? All right, so let's look at the bobbin real quick. I mean, the bobbin's low on thread, and I think that that's starting to tangle up a little bit and cause some problems. So let's just wind this bobbin. Let's just wind the bobbin. I decided to print the manual. So now we're gonna wind a bobbin. All right, so now let's wind a bobbin. I'm going to be using this thread over here instead of the variegated thread, just because I don't know why, because that's what I'm using, because that's what I decided to use. So, and then we're going to just kind of put the thread through one of these holes like that. There we go. Then I've seen this suggestion, kind of add this clip on here to hold it in place. And then you push this down, and then you push down on the foot pedal to wind it. Now I might want to actually increase the speed of my machine for this part. I think the timing might be off on this thing. Well, I think we're gonna have to take a little break because I think the timing of my machine might be bad. Dang it. Okay, I think I got it working again, so we are just going to try to continue sewing the base of this bag for now, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the tutorial tomorrow. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You probably didn't go anywhere, but I did. I took a day. It's tomorrow. Before was yesterday. Today's tomorrow. That's enough. Okay, so I was having some struggles. I think what I did was I actually didn't insert my bobbin correctly, and that caused a world of problems. So with any machine, make sure you insert your bobbin correctly. Make sure everything is the way it needs to be before you get to work, because I had a lot of problems. I didn't insert something correctly. The machine locked up. I was pretty sure that my timing was off. My timing was not off. It was just my machine was locked up. So I got it all squared away. I took the rest of the evening to take a break. As you saw a little clip, I did come back on and finish sewing the bottom. Hold on, I'm dropping something. So I did finish sewing the bottom of this. It's sewed together very easily. I do have one little pleat, which I have decided I'm going to leave because that's going to be my little stamp on this bag of beginner, right? First try, still learning. I kind of like when my bags, when I'm like just starting out. So like my first bags that I made, my first quilts that I made, the first bags I'm making on industrial, my first leather bag, I like them to have a little marking on them so that I remember that was a first. Because a year from now when I'm making leather bags, I'm probably going to look at them and go, oh man, I would never do that now. I have so much more experience now. I would never do that. But I like seeing it but when I started, I did do that. And I'm still really proud of what I made. So I'm going to flip this bag out and show it to you because it's cute. It's really cute. Let's see if I can look at that. Look how adorable this bag is. And you want to see the plate. Here's the plate right here. There's the plate. There's my little beginner stamp, my little mark. Again, this is for my mom. She's not going to notice. She's not going to mind. Anybody, honestly, who probably got this bag, unless they're a bag maker, they probably wouldn't even notice that. But look at that. Look at that. That looks so professional. Watch out, Louis Vuitton. Jessica's coming. Look how cute that is. Okay, so let me see if I need to trim down the seam allowance. I think I do. So I'm going to flip it back, wrong side out, and I'm going to trim down the seam allowance. And I will tell you, I did do 2 rows of stitching on the bottom. I did 1 row of stitching at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I did a 2nd row of stitching just outside of that. I didn't go over my stitching. I just did a 2nd row of stitching just outside of it. Let me see if I can show you. So let's see. Can you see there? So you see how I have my 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is closest in towards the Decoville Heavy, and then I have a 2nd row just a scotch outside of it. And that allows it so that the leather isn't really tugging at that just 1 row of stitches, right? It allows it to evenly distribute the pressure on the material. So you don't have to worry about thread showing or breaks. I don't know. I do this all the time with vinyl on my other machine. I don't know if you really need to do it with leather, but I did it for good measure. So I'm just going to trim this down real quick. Okay, so I have my Decoville Heavy lifting up just a tiny bit right there, and that's probably just because I didn't fuse it well enough since the rest of it's staying perfectly. I'm just going to grab a tiny piece of this super sticky double-sided tape. I'm just going to tape it down. I could also glue it down. I don't want to fuse it again because I don't feel like getting the iron out, honestly. There we go. I'm just going to tape it down. I just need to stay in place during construction. That's it. Once the bag's done, I don't have to worry about it. It will stay in place. So we can put this to the side for just a moment. Okay, so now we just have to do the little D-ring tabs and the lining, and we're done. And there's nothing big with the lining. There's no pockets in the lining, so we just have to kind of attach the top and bottom, add the zipper. Bada bang, bada boom. So I just marked a midpoint on the back of my strap tab piece, and I added some of that double-sided tape. This is 1/2 inch double-sided tape. So when I remove the paper, can you see my midpoint mark, kind of? Not really? No, that's okay. I'm just going to fold these long edges, wrong sides together. Again, there's a whole tutorial going over this if you'd like to watch that. Okay, now we're just going to top stitch along the 2 folded edges at about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's my strap connector, and so all I have to do now is fold this in half and cut just like that. And now I need to make my strap. Now the pattern is for a shoulder strap, so it's just this right here. I like it a little bit longer. I like it to be a crossbody strap or an adjustable strap. So I have 2 cuts for the straps. They're both the exact same size. I'm going to sew them together and then top stitch them. I'll show you. So I'm just going to lay them right sides together. And I'm going to sew along one of these short edges at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I have these sewn together. Now I'm just going to open them up. And I'm going to press that seam open with my fingers. And I'm going to just top stitch along both edges of this seam at about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm just making a longer strap. That's all. Okay, there we go. Now I have a longer strap. It's a little bit less than 40 inches long. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the strap connector for the strap, kind of. I'm going to mark a midpoint line, fold the long edges in wrong sides together, and then fold the whole thing in half just to make a 1 inch wide strap. We all know how to make the strap, right? Yes, we do. So since this is a leather strap, I definitely don't need to double fold it. So you can see I have the raw edges meeting in the middle just like that, and now I'm just going to fold the whole thing in half. And with leather, you don't need to do that. You could have just cut your strap 2 inches wide instead of 4 inches, and then that's it, you know, and then just have the raw edges on the side. You could coat them with edge coat. That's typically what I see being done, but I just honestly just kind of wanted to see how this would work. And so it's bulky, like right here is going to be very bulky. Well, it's going to be a lot of bulk. I'm not worried anymore about my machine sewing over that bulk. But I am kind of worried about like how that's going to work with the strap slider, you know, because my strap, my hardware, my slider, it's not really meant for really thick material. Now there are strap sliders out there. There's lots of fantastic bag hardware that is meant for thicker material. I just don't happen to have one of those right now. So I'm using what I got. So I might just have to make sure that that middle part there doesn't have to get moved around a whole lot. All right, now I'm just gonna sew along all 4 of the edges, the 2 folded edges and the short raw edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Let's see how that goes. I'm gonna grab my glasses. All right. Now I'm ready. Alright, so I want to show you this. So here is my little hump area. Let's see if I can get it. So I don't know if you can see right here on the left. I just tried to kind of power through that. I was just like, just get it going. I kind of sped up the machine. And you can see it skipped stitches. See that? It skipped a bunch of stitches. On this side over here, what I did was I actually used the crank and I just hand cranked over, you know, 5 stitches. I just hand cranked the 5 stitches to go over this thicker part over here. So I just hand cranked this, you know, over this thicker part here and it's perfect. But when I tried to power through over that one, it didn't work out so well. So I'm gonna try to be a little creative now with fixing that. Okay, so I did it a 3rd time because why not now? And it skipped again. So I'm very intrigued. We have the yellow thread here. And then we have like the long yellow thread, we have a long blue thread, and then we have like a somewhat long blue thread. So each time it did skip. I'm very curious as to why. So I don't know if I'm going to use this strap. I mean, I don't, you know what? I don't know if I'm gonna use a strap. I think I might have to make another strap. So I went ahead and cut a piece of gold leather. I know my mom asked for the brown leather for the strap, but I am out of it. So Mom, you're getting a gold strap. And this time I did just cut it by 2 inches. So instead of double folding, I'm just gonna single fold it. So all I'm gonna do is just fold it in half just like that and top stitch it and call it a day. Okay, that went better. That looks very, very good. Look how pretty that is. I love this. I love this gold. Now, I'm not going to edge coat this. You definitely could. You can see how we have those raw edges there. You could get your edge coat paint and edge coat it. I'm not going to. I am going to shave it down just a little bit. So we have some areas. Let me see if I can show you. So we have some areas where one edge kind of peeked through farther than the other edge. So for those areas, I'll just kind of shave them down to try to get it all nice and neat. I might edge coat this later. So ideally, you would edge coat this now and then let it dry and then continue on with your bag. But we've already made this a 2-day video. We're not going to make it a 3-day, hopefully. So I'm not going to edge coat this now. I can edge coat this after it's been installed on the bag. It's not ideal, but it can work. For these little threads over here, I'm just going to pull the bobbin thread a little bit. And then I'm pulling down that top thread so that all of my threads, so I have 4 threads here, so all 4 threads are on the back here. And then I'm just gonna knot them together. I'm just gonna tie them in little knots, cut them and burn them and be done with that part. So now you see how they are just like little clips now. I'm just gonna take a lighter. I'm just gonna burn them. There we go. And when I burn them down, now they're just like little nubs, which will be folded over and hidden anyways. Never gonna notice it. So I'm gonna grab my little strap connectors. And I wasn't actually supposed to top stitch these yet. Oh well. I'm going to not follow the pattern for this part. I'm just going to thread my strap connectors so that the wrong sides go along the bottom, just like that on these crazy strap things I have here. And I'm just going to top stitch along the bottom edge to hold it in place, but I'm not going to stitch along here. So the pattern has you kind of like stitch a rectangle all the way. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use a couple rivets here to hold this steady later. So for now, I'm just going to top stitch this. And as you can see, I'm always holding my thread, especially my top thread. I'm always holding my top thread because this sucker is powerful and it will yank that thread right out of your hand, can get jammed in the bottom. And one thing I learned yesterday when my machine was getting very angry at me is that if you get that top thread jammed in the bobbin area, it's game over. You're done. You have to stop. You have to take everything out. You have to figure out what's going on, fix it, reset it. You got to be so careful about that. So definitely something I'm learning. Okay, there we go. We have them on there. Like I said, I'm going to add some rivets to like hold this in place after we're done with construction of the bag. I don't like to add rivets right now because I'm not exactly sure how much of this is going to be eaten up in the seam and I don't want to accidentally sew over them. Okay, so now I have my bag. Take my strap connector, put it on the right side of the bag, and I'm just going to baste this on right at the seam between the front and the back panels. I'm going to do this for both seams on my bag, so both my strap connectors. I want to show you. I got this attached, right? And then I attached this other one right in the center of my bag. I don't know where my head is today, guys. Okay, we're just about done with the exterior now. The lining should go much smoother, and then we just put it all together. So that's the next part I'm kind of worried about is top stitching around the top of these bags. I never like top stitching around the top of these bags. It's always hard, especially with this, you know, thickness right here that we're gonna have to fold over. Ugh, that's gonna be a mess. Okay, I'm gonna quickly, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quickly add my logo to this bag because I haven't added my bag tag yet, so I'm just gonna add my little OklaRoots bag tag and move on to the lining. All right, I've got my lining top panel. This is waterproof canvas, and then I've got my zipper tape. And now I'm just going to follow the pattern and attach my zipper to the lining. I'm using about a 4mm stitch length for when I'm just doing construction, and then I go up to like a 5.5 for top stitching. I still don't really have like a number I prefer just yet. So as you can see, I'm not using a zipper foot. I'm just using the regular foot that came with my machine. This is the first time I'm really doing like a zipper, so we'll see how it goes, but I think it's gonna be okay. So now I'm taking that bottom panel, I'm just gonna line it up and clip it in place. Now I'm just gonna sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. Should be the same as what we did before. Let's see if I can do it from the other side though. So now you can just kind of pull them apart. And I have no problem using the regular foot instead of a zipper foot. I think it gets plenty close. I think it looks just as good as if I were to use a zipper foot. Yeah, it looks great. So we don't actually top stitch this. I think if you wanted to, you probably could. I'm not going to. Actually, I think I will top stitch along it because I don't see why we couldn't. I'm going to top stitch along the top edge here to kind of hold the seam in place, and then I'll add the other side. And I think that will be fine. Let's just try it. Live and learn. We've already made all the other mistakes, right? We might as well just keep going. So I'm just going to top stitch this at about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I increased my stitch length to about 5.5. Okay, now I'm just going to sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm actually sewing along this edge at a little bit less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance because when I add the bottom, then I'll sew along at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can definitely sew them both down. So the pattern actually says sew this part at a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then just trace those stitches when you attach the bottom. I don't always have the best of luck with that method. I have a tendency to not trace very well. I'm not a very good tracer. So this just works easier for me. I'm just gonna sew it on at like a just under 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when I do the bottom, I'll do the true 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that way none of my stitches are gonna be seen. And it's no big deal if I didn't trace very well. You always gotta remember, these are not rectangles. This top here is shorter than the bottom. And you always wanna make sure the shorter edge goes along the zipper. The bigger, longer edge is the bottom of the bag. And it needs to be down there because we got curves. We still have curves ahead. Curvy sewing ahead. All right, now I'm just gonna sew from the back of the bottom panel at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's gonna be a little bit bigger than my last one. You move that zipper pull out of the way. You do not want to sew over that, no matter what kind of machine you have. You don't want to sew over your zipper pull. It's not good. And just like before, I'm going to top stitch the seam behind the top panel. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to top stitch it behind the top panel. Alrighty, and that's pretty much the lining. There you go. There's no pockets or anything on the lining, so now we just have to sew along the sides. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew along one side all the way down, and then on the other side we're going to sew, but we're going to leave a 6-inch opening for turning the bag out later. So I'm going to sew this first side at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'll be honest, I kind of wish we had zipper tabs on this because when we sew this right now, this zipper tape folds in half, just like this. So let me see if I can show you. So can you see how the coils, so you see how the coils, they're gonna be just like that. That is a very dense thing to sew over. So if your needle hits it when the coils are on their sides like that, folded on top of one another, it's very likely your needle's going to break. So what I'm doing is I am opening up the end here, just like that. And then when I fold them together, I actually fold them like this. Can you guys see that? See how one set of coils is on top and the other set's on the bottom? This creates kind of like a little, I don't know if you can see in there. I don't think you can see in there, but it creates like a little crossover on the ends, which isn't ideal. But I really don't like sewing over coils when they're stacked like that. I've had a lot of needles break trying to do that, and I work really hard to avoid any sort of needle break. So I am just kind of stacking these like this to avoid that problem. But it would be better if you had zipper tabs on the ends of this. So if you just cut your zipper a little bit shorter and then you added some fabric to the ends of your zipper tape, so it's like the whole, with the zipper tabs on the end, the whole tape would be the same length as this one, but you wouldn't have any coils that would get into your seam allowance. You know what, you see what I'm saying? Maybe we'll find another pattern to kind of adapt that on, because I hate breaking needles. It's scary. That's why I wear my glasses. It's scary when a needle breaks. Okay, so for this one, I have to leave a 6-inch opening on the side. And now we're going to attach our bottom panel to the lining, just like we did with the exterior. All right, now we're gonna sew along this bottom at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. go. Actually, there's just a couple of pleats, you know. I don't know if you can even see it. Oh, here we go. It's not bad. It's fine. So I am going to trim this down. Now, I don't do the double stitching on the lining because the lining fabric, again, isn't really seen. And it's also a thinner material. It's not going to have the same, you know, pressure on it that the exterior is going to have. Okay, now we want the lining to be wrong side out. And then you want your exterior right side out. It's just so pretty, isn't it? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And now we're going to put the exterior inside the lining. Make sure you line up the side seams of the exterior with the side seams of your lining. Don't mistake the center seams of your exterior as your side seams. So we're just going to line this all up, right sides together. Grab some clips, clip it together. And then these little strap tabs here, they go inside the bag. So they're going to go between the lining and the exterior. Don't have them flopping around outside of it. All right, now I have it all clipped. Let's sew along this top edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, and I'm gonna sew from the inside of the bag, whichever way is easiest for you. Sew that way. I think that this is gonna be easiest. I don't know. I'm gonna try to hold on to that top thread before I get started. Always making sure those giant, you know, strap connectors are down and they haven't like twisted themselves up close to my seam because I don't want to sew over that. I'm not going to go over it a second time. I'm not going to go around a second time. I think that one row of stitching will be okay. I hope. I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. So now I'm going to trim down this top seam allowance to 1/4 inch because it is so big. We don't need it so big. Okay, so now we're going to turn the whole bag through that hole. Okay, so I'm going to tuck the lining into the bag. And I'm going to top stitch first, and then I'm going to close the lining because I like to be able to put my hand inside the lining to help roll out these top edges if I need it. All right, I have the top all nice and rolled in, and now I'm going to top stitch along that. Oof, I'm nervous, guys. So my bulkiest seams are right here where they connect and fold over. So right there, I'm going to use my key fob press, and I'm just going to press that down gently to try to get it a little bit flatter. Because I really don't want skip stitches there. I'm kind of nervous about that now. I'm going to up my stitch length to maybe like a 6mm stitch length. I'm going to make it longer. So I'm just going to sew it with the exterior right side up. Again, I'm increasing my stitch length pretty big. To like for me it's pretty big, 6 millimeters. Going slow, making sure I don't accidentally hit any metal anywhere because I got a lot of metal clanking around over here. And I'm not back stitching because I will tie them off after I'm done. Yep, we skip stitches again, guys. Why do we do that? Why did it skip stitches? And skip the stitches again. So I'm going to remove these. You don't really want to unpick in leather, but I mean, it's better to do it here rather than try to fix it later, right? Okay, looks like that fixed it. So I think maybe on the front, I'm going to try to hand crank over. Actually, I'll try hand cranking over these sides over here. You see these side tabs here? That's very, very bulky. So I'll try just hand cranking over that and seeing how that works. So I'll show you right here, when it's trying to get over this hump right here, the needle is actually being shifted to the side and it's hitting the walking feet. So I'm gonna change my needle out because this needle has been through some things. It's been through some abuse. So I'm gonna switch out my needle and then continue on. Okay, so the top stitching is going kind of tricky, like I expected. It's not the best top stitching. It's like really not the best top stitching. Oh well. I have about 2 inches left. And the problem I'm running into is as we go over here, as the needle gets here, this little bulk right here, you see that? There's just that small amount of bulk there, but it's so thick and so dense that once the needle gets to it, it like pushes the needle and the needle gets pushed to the side and it ends up hitting the feed dogs, which then is a problem. So I'm hand cranking over it, but what I think I'm gonna have to do now is I unpicked a little bit, which kind of stinks because now I'm gonna have these holes here forever. But I'm going to redo it and I'm going to go underneath here, which again kind of stinks because now it's not going to be a complete straight top stitching, but my top stitching is never straight, so that's probably not that big of a deal. But that's my strategy right now. You know, top stitching the top of these bags is always such a mess. It's not something I enjoy doing, to be honest. So I'm going to try to go underneath this big old mess over here. And see if that will be easier. And I'm just hand cranking. So as you can see from the top here, I have a lot of little strings. Those are all where I had issues, where I had to kind of cut the thread, fix the needle. So obviously, I mean, you can see this is not desirable. That's not the desired look. It's a learning curve. I obviously have much more learning to do, which is fine. I will. I'm just not sure why it had such a hard time with this bulk right here, because I do believe it should be able to go over that just fine. So I'm wondering if, while I've been kind of messing with my machine so much, I wonder if I kind of mess something up. You know what I mean? So right now I'm just pulling all of my threads to the back so that I can tie them off, burn them off, and be done with this attempt. Okay, so here's where we're at. Lots of mistakes made, but it still looks really, really cute. It is a gift for my mom. I know she'll love it. She won't mind the wonkiness. It's not quite the level of professionalism that I was hoping for, but I think it has a lot to do with user. So I have more things to try out. So I'm gonna pull out the lining real quick and close up the lining. Okay, let's just top stitch this down and be done with the stitching. Okay, so here's where we have, I am going to do the strap off camera because that's just using rivets. Again, if you want to see how I do that, I have a link down below in the description. I'll be right back. Okay, the bag is done. Here it is. As you can see, I left off the slider for the crossbody because I forgot that even if I do want it to be a shorter strap with a crossbody adjustable slider on it, this strap would need to be longer. So this is more of like a longer shoulder bag. Here, I'll stand up and show it to you. So can you see that? So this goes just about hip height. I think this will be good. This is for my mom, so we'll have to see. I can still wear this as a crossbody, but she's not a big crossbody fan. So overall, this bag turned out adorable. I still think it looks pretty professional. I can tell you right here, this is what's driving me crazy. Look at that. But what's weird is on this side, see? It looks fine. But then on the lining side, it's a mess. So I don't really think there's anything I can do about that now. I think I'm just kind of, it is what it is. I have a lot to learn. A lot to learn. I did have multiple issues with sewing on my machine purely because I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. There are some things here, you know, we had so much trouble going over this section right here. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. Maybe I wasn't using the right size needle. Maybe I didn't have my tension. I don't know. So I have a lot to learn. So the next time I do a sit and sew on this machine, it's going to be making a boxy bag. My classic, you know, little two-toned boxy bag. It's again going to be all leather. It's going to be waterproof canvas. We're going to try to do that. So the first item we did worked out pretty well. I feel like this might have been just a bit too ambitious for me considering my skill level with this machine. So I think I'm going to take a step back and we're going to do a boxy bag, see how that goes. But I'm still really happy with how this turned out. I mean, it looks beautiful. The material's really nice. It's definitely something that I personally wouldn't have been able to complete on my Bernina or my other Juki. So I'm really excited to see what else I can make, but it's also kind of, you know, an overwhelming feeling to know I still have so much I have to learn, which is how it's going to be with pretty much any machine of any type. You know, there's a lot to learn, and there's going to be moments that are really exciting and fun and it all works out, and there are going to be moments where it's so frustrating because you just don't know what you're doing. So I hope you enjoyed sitting and sewing with me today. I know this was a 2-day long video, so I have no idea how long it is now for you, but it was a fun one. It was a really beautiful bag. I'm excited to give this to my mom. I know she's going to love it. I'm excited for her to wear it around. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.